Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Radio Sports Network. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Radio Sports Network. We're broadcasting live and in living color from Beef O'Brady's, State Road 23 in beautiful Granger, Indiana. Glad you can join us here on 91.1 FM The Globe. My name is Paul Condry. Glad to be your host again this Thursday night alongside Tanner Camp. It's a blessing that we're going to be talking some American tackle football tonight. This whole hour is dedicated to American tackle football. So stick around for all the details. Longtime friend, covered him as an athlete, now as a coach. Glad to have Keith Kinder, the head football coach of the Mishawaka Cavemen, his team unbeaten in a heck of a race with those pesky Warsaw Tigers and those Northwood Panthers, and that's all going to come to a head here in the next couple of weeks. We'll be talking a little bit about the Northern Lakes Conference, and we'll be talking about the great start that the Cavemen have been on. They have outscored their opponents 150 to 53. So we'll be talking with Keith here on the program. So we encourage you to stick around, and we'll be back live to Beef O'Brady's. And get out your clubs because it's Caveman football time. We'll be back right after this on 91.1 FM The Globe and Regional Radio Sports.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and Online Banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
The Regional Radio Sports Networks thanks Cubit Networks for their support of high school and college athletics. Since 1986, Cubit Networks is focused on providing a quality experience to their customers. They take computer security seriously and have the necessary tools to keep your digital assets and environment safe. They're located at 103 Polk Street in LaPorte, and their phone number is 219-369-4357. That's 219-369-4357. Cubit Networks, moving and storing data fast and safe.
And welcome once again here on Regional Radio Sports. Glad you can join us here from Beef O'Brady's. I'm Paul Condry. Special thanks to our teammate Dante Stanton for taking, as always, particularly very good care of our broadcast situation here. Once again, we're blessed to be with you. We are getting ready to engage in week number 5 of the 2022 high school football season. It's been a crazy start to the season for a lot of teams, and good for some, bad for others. And the guy across the table for me, he's used to winning, and his team's off to a rip-roaring start at 4 wins and no losses. We welcome in the head coach of the Mishawaka Cavemen, Keith Kinder. Keith, as always, great to visit with you. Thanks for taking time to come out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to be with you guys.
You know, I tell you what, I always look forward to our conversations, and you know, we were talking, Coach Lovell and I last Saturday night when we do our feature on Network Indiana. By the way, I just want to let our listening audience know that show is also podcast. Everything in the world is being podcast now. So if you ever want to listen to that every Saturday night, it's on Apple. It's my understanding of some of those type of situations. But one of the things that Bob and I were talking about this past weekend was knowing when you're ready to become a head football coach or a head coach of whatever sport it was going to be. So let me throw that one out to start. When did you realize that you were ready to become a head coach?
I never realized it. I don't think I've actually given this presentation at football clinics about you're never ready. You think you are, but you're not actually ready until you don't know what you don't know, until you find out that you don't know it. So I don't know that I'm ready now. You know, every now and again I'll call Bart and say, hey, if you want this job back, I'll fall back, you know. I think it's just you can prepare yourself as much as possible, and I think the best way to prepare yourself is to be as good of an assistant coach as you can possibly be. But I'll tell you, actually, having been a head coach now, this is my 5th season, I know that I would be the best assistant coach if I ever got that opportunity or that situation ever arose again, because I've now been in the position that I'm in. So I thought I was ready, but I was in a really positive situation. So there are guys, I think, that are so desperate to be a head coach that they'll take bad jobs.
Oh yeah.
And then
bad career move.
Then they're out of football in 4 or 5 years. I like winning, and so I was comfortable with being the offensive coordinator at Mishawaka and Bart being the head coach. I had no idea that he was going to leave. I applied for one job in my time as an assistant for Bart. It was the Bremen job when it came open. I thought I had a chance to get it. I think I did. I think I did a good job in the interview. They went a different direction, but in the end, I still had a good job, and so I wasn't desperate to be a head coach. I knew that it was something that I wanted to have happen, but I was confident that the situation would present itself when the time was right.
There were a dozen guys who were head coaches this past year that opted out of being head coaches to becoming assistant coaches either elsewhere or at the same school that they were the head coach at. So we're seeing a lot of guys go that route if they're not getting out. But I would agree with you wholeheartedly. The worst job you can get, or the worst job you can take, is one of those programs that is historically bad, because it's almost like an act of God to change a program that has been historically terrible. And there are a bunch of those in this state that are like that. To me, that is suicide for your career.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So there's conundrums for assistants that want to be head coaches. Like, do you want to take a job that seems like it's unwinnable, or do you want to replace a legend? Like, neither job seems very appealing, right? The guy that followed,
Chris Giesman,
Bill Sharp, Bart, that because if you are successful, it's because of what the guy before you did, and if you failed, it's all on you. So there's challenges in any direction, but I think that the point that you made about head coaches that are getting out of it to be assistants, I think the thing that guys don't realize is how much your relationship with players change when you become the head coach, how little actual coaching you do, and it becomes more of a program management and dealing with discipline and parents and administration and the actual coaching players on the field. That changes. So if that's what you're really passionate about, like, that's the struggle, right? My relationship with players now, while I think is a positive one, is way different than what it was when I was a position coach and a coordinator. And so there's value in that as well. And so, there's something to be said about, you go teach 8 to 3, you go out to the field and you coach from 3 to 5, and you can turn it off. And that's not the way that this job is anymore for head coaches. It doesn't turn off.
I was talking with Allison Derdzinski, the women's volleyball coach at IU South Bend, because I was broadcasting their game this week. And the question I had for her in our pregame show, I says, because she was an assistant there for 11 years, and I asked her flat out, I says, now that you've moved over 18 inches to another chair, what's different? And exactly what you talked about is how I engage with our athletes now is different. There are some coaches, and there's been coaches, I know there's been some criticisms about some coaches about they're too friendly with their players, that you have to be a stern taskmaster. There's got to be some kind of balance. Now, obviously, each type of gender, you may coach a little different, and that is totally different depending upon the situation. But having said that, what is different for you moving over 18 inches? And now that you look back on it 5 years down the road, do you think you handled yourself pretty well? The record says you did.
Well, I don't even know that it's as much about the wins and the losses as it is about, like, have I stayed true to myself. That was the best advice I got when I talked to, Sharpie, and when I talked to Corey Yeoman. Like, it was be you. Like, you guys have been around Bart enough to know that there is no way to duplicate him, right? So, like, if I try to be him, then that's fake, So it's really about being true to who you are, setting values at what you want to set the values at, and then, the really interesting situation that I was put into, and a lot of guys are put into now, is these guys that I was. Number one, they're my best friends. Number two, we're peers and coworkers, and then now all of a sudden, I have to be the leader of that group. And sometimes the challenging part is when those guys put you in a position to be the boss. Like, I don't like to be the boss. That's not the way that I am. But there are some times where that's the position that I'm put into, and that makes it uncomfortable at times. But I think the biggest thing is like you said, the relationships, just the way that you interact with people, the thoughtfulness that you have to have about the message that you're trying to send about your program, every waking moment, and what you're trying to build. And those are the things that I never thought about. It was a luxury as an assistant that you don't think about,
Sure.
And I, call Bart up and ask him the number of times that I have called him and just said, hey, I appreciate you, because I had no idea that you were doing this and keeping me from having to deal with it until I realized that I'm now doing that and trying to take that stuff on so that the guys that are coaching can coach. So it's fun, but it doesn't seem to stop.
When you think back on your relationship with Bill Sharp as a player, and you think about your relationship now with Bill Sharp as the mentor, as the guy who's, let's face it, the resume is as epic as 10 to the best in the history of the game in our state. How do you think Bill Sharp perceives you today?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think
Does he look at you as the athlete?
No, well, I don't know the answer to that. When you say how does he perceive me, the only thing that instantly comes to mind is I hope he's proud of me.
Oh, I think that would
like I don't know if he thinks of me as the player or
Sure.
as a coach. I know that at some point we're going to get beat this year. The first phone call will be from him,
Okay.
And just to see how I'm doing, I get a text from him every Friday morning wishing me luck. With David in Noblesville, he doesn't if David ain't playing, he's at our game. You know what I mean? So, I still hear from him. I learned a lot from him in terms of, I know his career record by heart just because of how much I respect him. I don't know that he knows how many games he won, but he knows the number of games he lost.
He can tell you everything about the games he lost.
And he can tell you play-by-play year, and that's something that's really stuck with me. And I'm the same way. I don't really know how many games we've won, but I know the number of games we've lost, and I can tell you why we got beat.
Right now, do you know what your record is?
I don't know how many games we've won, but I know we've lost 13.
Okay. Are you absolutely sure of that?
We have lost 13 games in my time as a head coach.
Okay.
And I can tell you why all 13 if you got enough time.
I got time. Let's talk about that relationship with Bart Curtis. And it's so unique now because now you're in the same league.
Right.
So you're going to have to prepare for him. I don't know if it's difficult. Maybe it's not. When you're preparing to play the team that you mirror, that you do everything. And I've been to when Bart was coaching here, I've been to practice. I know how the pace of practice. I know how I know how his mind works. And I've watched him go from Mechaniqua to New Prairie to here. And everything he's done it his way. I hate to bring in that song by Frank Sinatra, Doing My Way, but he really has done it his way. But having said that, now you're in a situation where you're going to be matched up with him. What's it like knowing that you can sit down and have dinner or whatever the case may be, go out to breakfast. But knowing on a particular Friday night, every Friday night in the fall, you guys are going to play each other.
Yeah, it sucks. It's not fun. It's not a fun week. You learn to have an appreciation for the people that have to prepare for what we do offensively one time a year, because it is brutal. What we do offensively, I really believe, is mind-numbingly hard to figure out how to stop, and so you get an appreciation for that. But then, it's the fact that I know that, how competitive he is. He knows how competitive I am. We have a great relationship, but on that Friday, we're rooting against the other, and there aren't any other Fridays like that. So, it's an interesting matchup, but they've gotten us twice. Like, we got to figure out a way to beat them. So, that's kind of been our rallying cry is to figure out a way to beat the best teams in our league, and we got to do that.
I talk to Bart Curtis every Saturday morning because he is the Region 2 Colts Coach of the Week nominator, if you will. So he and I are back and forth every Saturday, and which is in typical Coach Bill or Coach Bart Curtis's style. As I said, did you play well last night, Coach? That's I asked him that just out of his courtesy, and the answer is, well, we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do, and my point was that you're off to an unbeaten start, and Phil Mason, who I ran into, is the head coach of Michigan City. His quote to me was, when I saw them on Friday, this might be your best defensive team that he's ever seen. And so I sent that note over to Bart. Bart says to me, defensive-wise, quite possible. But he wants to remind me that our 4 wins are against teams with a combined 3-13 record, and with one of those wins coming against the other. So here is a guy sitting at 4-0, should be on top of the world, and he's reminding himself, and rightfully so, that, listen, we haven't played the best part of our slate yet, and that's going to have to come to the fruition, if you will. So Bart's mind is unique in its own way.
Sure.
And I love that about him because he is so dadgum honest, doesn't sidestep the question. I mean, if they stink, he'll tell you they stink. And from my perspective as a journalist, and you've been in this chair before as a journalist, you know what it's like. There's nothing better in the world to hear someone tell you the honest to goodness truth.
Right.
Instead of try to blowing smoke up your backside. It's so refreshing to have guys in his position to share that with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to wonder how he feels. He's going to tell you straightforward. So,
are you the same way?
I don't know the answer to that. I do believe that at 4-0, we're not as good as people would be willing to give us the credit for. But I think that if you want to be successful, that's the mindset that you have to have. Nick Saban uses the phrase rat poison, and I think that when you listen to people tell you how good you are, eventually you start to believe it, and that's the kind of stuff that can kill momentum. Because when you think you're good enough, then there's not the desire to get better, and if you're not getting better, you're getting worse because you don't stay the same. We tell our kids that every day. You're either getting better or you're getting worse today. You don't stay the same. One or the other happens. So, but I will tell you, I have seen them on film, and I disagree with him. I think they're incredible on defense, and they are good enough on offense. So they've got a really good football team. I think tomorrow's matchup between Northwood and Warsaw is going to be a really good battle. I'm really curious to see how that plays out.
Now, you find yourself in a very unique situation coming up on Friday because you guys, on paper, strictly paper, which what I have right here, are heads and tails better against this Plymouth team.
Right.
This is kind of a trap game for a coach because the student athletes know that on paper they're better than this team. Mm-hmm. But they know that but you're going to remind them that they've got to lace it up on Friday.
Right.
Granted, you've got some solid seniors up front that you're going to be able to rely on. But how do you, as a coach, make sure that those boys on Friday night don't get caught, and you loved using the term from Hoosiers, don't get caught watching the paint dry.
Right.
Because really that's what you have, because then the following week you have Warsaw.
Right. I think that the way that you handle weeks like this is you're honest with your team. I tell our kids all the time, I'll never lie to you, right? Like, I won't lie to you about an opponent. I won't lie to you about yourselves. I'm not going to lie to you. And are we better than Plymouth? Absolutely. Is that the point? Absolutely not. The point is that you get a limited number of opportunities to play this game, right? You get a limited number of times to be at home. Are you going to waste one because you think you're better than the people you're playing?
Great point.
Right? So it's about being the best version of ourselves every time we take the field. It's not about who we're playing. It's about, are we progressing as a team? And if we come out and play poorly, if we're sloppy, can we win the game? Probably. Is that the point? No. Because if we want to win the games that we have to win, we can't waste opportunities like we have tomorrow night. So that's been the message all week is, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the team that beats Plymouth? Or do you want to be the team that's beaten Fort Wayne Snyder in the regional, or Fort Wayne Dwenger in the regional, or Concord in the sectional? Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish? Because then that tells you the kind of week that we're going to have. So we spent a lot of time talking about this week, but that's not any different than any week. Like I said, our focus is consistently trying to be on this day. How do we get better today? Whether we're playing Warsaw, Plymouth, Wawasee, Northridge, whoever.
Was the double overtime win for you guys against Northridge, was that a good experience in regards to, not only did you win the game, but you responded and you took care of the business in the overtime? How did you perceive that as you look back on now?
Well, I think it's always good. There were a couple of positive things in that. Number one, in the first 2 weeks of the season, we faced zero adversity.
Right.
And so my concern through 2 weeks was literally, I'm not kidding you, and through 2 games, I'd never been a part of this, where almost nothing bad happened to us. We had very few third downs. We didn't give up big plays on defense. We didn't turn the ball over. We didn't play from behind at any point. Like, it just a weird. So, like, through 2 games, it was kind of like, okay, the ball's going to drop at some point. How are we going to react? So
the sudden change moments.
Right. And I thought we handled ourselves pretty well. We turned it over twice on offense, one time deep in our territory, or in our own territory in the fourth quarter with a 3-point lead, and our defense held them to a 3-and-out and a field goal that tied the game. We had a chance to win the game at the end of regulation, and the snap hold exchange on the field goal wasn't great. So we go to overtime, and we trade 8 points, and then we get the ball first in the second overtime. We score, but we don't get the 2-pointer. And so now it's, hey, they got to score a touchdown, kick a PAT, and they win the game. And we were fortunate enough to create a turnover. So I think those kinds of games are valuable regardless of the outcome. They're just a lot more fun.
Sure.
When you win, it's more fun to learn lessons when you win, and it's more fun to see those moments that, when kids shine under pressure.
Sure.
And you learn a lot about the kind of group that you have. So I'm really pleased with the outcome of that game and the way that we grew, but we're still young, we're still immature, we just still got a lot of growth to do.
When we come back after the timeout, question number 1, we're going to give Coach a chance to think about it. How's Brady Fisher, his quarterback, maturing? We'll ask him that when we come back right after the timeout. We're live from Beef O'Brady's. This is the Coach's Box on 91.1 FM The Globe and Regional Radio Sports.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and online banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is now available in select stores across Indiana and online for order at indianafootballdigest.com. This year's digest is packed to the brim, not only with stats and scores, but in-depth and detailed analysis about each Indiana High School Athletic Association team. It also features a section on Indiana collegiate football and quotes from coaches all around the state, giving readers an inside look at the world of Indiana high school football. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is available in select stores or online at indianafootballdigest.com.
Welcome back here on Regional Radio Sports. Paul Condry along with Tanner Camp. Glad you can join us here for the Coach's Box. Keith Kinder, the head football coach at Mishawaka, joining us. 39 wins for the record, 13 losses in 5 years at the school. His team lost to Michigan City in the postseason last year, but he had a pretty young quarterback that was kind of just thrown to the wolves, if you will. Hate to use that terminology, but realistically, he had a chance. He had to grow up real quick. I think you probably put him in probably a little bit quicker than you would have liked to in hindsight. But talk about the maturation of Brady Fisher.
Well, he's interesting. You know, he's the complete opposite of his brother. So it's been interesting. We've had three Fishers. CJ, who had an incredible year, his senior year in 2018 when we played in the semi-state, is our leading tackler, team captain, defensive MVP, and then Justin, who's quite possibly the most competitive person I've ever been around, and then Brady.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean,
even more than you.
Justin is far more than me.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Brady is just like the cool guy, nothing really gets under his skin. You try to irritate him and it just falls off his shoulders. And if you aren't careful, you would think, he's not very competitive, but you're wrong if you think that, because he really is competitive. He just is a little bit cooler under pressure. So, he's done a really good job. He's deceptively quick. He's pushing 6'4". Which is odd for a flex bone quarterback. He doesn't seem to run very fast, but he's got a pretty good little burst. He's got really long legs. He's lanky, kind of looks awkward running like a baby deer sometimes, but I've been really impressed with him. He's taken really good care of the football. He's made the intelligent adjustments at the line of scrimmage when we've given him those opportunities. He's slowly growing into understanding different fronts and looking at the perimeter and blocking schemes and stuff like that. So he's grown up a lot, and he's not as vocal, but he doesn't have to be right now. He's doing exactly what's been asked of him.
You've got two of the best offensive linemen in the geographical area in Dawson, Nowacki and Tanner Parmley. I'm blessed to have a chance to work with Parm during the off season with some construction projects at my home, and we go to church together. So I know him really, really well. I'm really proud of that kid. He's a really high character, high quality kid. And likewise, I got a chance to meet Dawson when we had our cover shoot for the football book. So let's talk about those two youngsters. And Dawson, a 4-year guy, Tanner, a 3-year guy. I just don't know how you can get two kids more zeroed in than those guys, right?
They're exceptional kids. They're great leaders. They're not afraid to be leaders. Sometimes I think in today's society, it's popular to to be a goofball. These guys are not ashamed to be good students, good athletes, to be young men of faith, and they're not afraid to talk about their faith, when it's unpopular nowadays to have those conversations as well. So they're very passionate individuals about not just football, but life and their future. I don't think that I've ever met a young man as ready for the next step in life as Parm is. Parm is he loves high school football. He loves Mishawaka football, but he is aware that when this is done, he wants to move on. He wants to get ready to go into the ministry, and I think that's a really special characteristic about him. Dawson has aspirations to play at the next level, and I think he's good enough to do that. So, you couldn't ask for two better kids that have done all the work that's been asked of them, but then represent the program in the right way. Like, they're the kinds of kids that you would want to marry your daughter, and so I think that is something that they should be proud of, their families should be proud of, and that Mishawaka football and the community should be proud of.
Who else is playing well for you guys up front?
Well, Garrett Ginter at center is a 2-year starter. He's had a really good start to the year. He got banged up in the Northridge game. We kind of held him out last week because of precautions. We'll probably keep him out tomorrow. But he is one tough cookie. He's battled multiple injuries. On the defensive side of the ball, we've got some really good play out of Balin Eby, who's a senior captain, 2-year starter. Dawson has played both, defense at times. Peyton Jones is a senior on the defensive line. And I'll tell you, players, to kind of keep your eye on is sophomore Carmine Orozco at defensive end. He's going to be a special one, 6'4", 250, really, really moves well, and he's making some plays that you don't see a lot of sophomores make. And if he stays committed to getting better and focusing on that process, I think he's got a chance to have a really special career. So we got some kids up front. I think we've been fortunate in the first 4 games to be able to control the line of scrimmage in both games, but like I tell our kids, we don't really have an idea of what's coming at us. We've got a tough stretch coming up that we've got to mentally and physically prepare for.
All right, on the defensive side of the football, who's playing well?
Well, Aiden Hooten, who you had out here in the preseason, Isaac Valdez, who is our returning leading tackler from a year ago at outside linebacker, is starting to pick it up and make a lot of plays in the open field. He's a wrestler that's qualified for state last year, and I think wrestlers always make the best tacklers, particularly in the open field. So he's playing pretty well. Both of our corners have improved a lot. I think all in all, the defense has been a pleasant surprise up to this point. I thought we would struggle at times, and really we've been efficient defensively. We've been really good on third down, which is something we struggled on in the past. I think through 4 games we have like 6 fourth down stops, which is kind of crazy. That hasn't happened a lot, and multiple, like 3 4th and 1 stops, which is really hard to do. So we've played pretty well up to this point, but we understand that the tough part of our schedule is still coming, and that's something that we've talked to our kids a bunch about.
The league right now, Mishawaka, Northwood, and Warsaw all sitting at 2-0. Goshen, Wabasee at 1-1, and you have Concord, Northridge, and Plymouth all at 0-2. That's the way the league looks at itself right now, and I think people would probably argue to say that, you guys, Northwood, Warsaw are the 3 best team. I would say that Concord team, as a matter of fact, I talked to Craig today, actually, and I know that his team is, they've had some tough breaks here in the early stages. Their defense has not been as good as he would have liked them to be, and same situation with their offense. So, but take a look at the league as a whole. Is it playing out the way you thought it would be?
I don't know. So we started the rotating schedule this year, and so it kind of shook up the order in which teams played each other, which I think is an exciting way to look at it. You could argue Concord at 0-2. Well, they've lost to Northwood and Warsaw, right? Northridge at 0-2. They lost to Mishawaka and Northwood. So, are Concord and Northridge 2 of the 3 worst teams in the league? Absolutely not, in my opinion. So I think that there's a little bit of stuff early on. I believe that by the end of week 7, there will be a clear picture of who is the best team in the league and the right order of things. If you think Northwood Warsaw play this week, Mishawaka Warsaw play week 6, Mishawaka Northwood play week 7. I think at the end of week 7, you'll have a pretty good idea of how things shake up, because that'll be really the end of the gauntlet for every team in terms of, seems like every team has a stretch of 2 to 3 straight weeks of tough opponents, and Warsaw's in the middle of theirs right now. We haven't kicked into ours yet. Ours starts next week. Northwood is in the middle of theirs. So I think it's going to be an interesting month coming up.
Keith Kinder, our special guest, will be back with our final segment with Keith right after this short timeout. We're live from Beef O'Brady's. This is the Coach's Box on 91.1 FM.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is now available in select stores across Indiana and online for order at indianafootballdigest.com. This year's digest is packed to the brim, not only with stats and scores, but in-depth and detailed analysis about each Indiana High School Athletic Association team. It also features a section on Indiana collegiate football and quotes from coaches all around the state, giving readers an inside look at the world of Indiana high school football. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is available in select stores or online at indianafootballdigest.com.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and online banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
Welcome back here on Regional Radio Sports. Thanks for joining us. Special thanks to Keith Kinder for taking time out of his busy schedule. And I mean that sincerely, Coach. I appreciate it, because one of the things that, I mean, you've got a young family, and I appreciate your time immensely and coming out here. And to me, I think that is my biggest concern for head coaches today, especially young head coaches like yourself. You're trying to navigate family, trying to spend as much time with your young kids as you can, you know, the relationship with your wife, all those kind of things. And I think it's kind of a neat in many ways, because I look back and every time I get back home to Hobart, Indiana, I talk to the legendary Tom Kerr, the great defensive coordinator for all those Bricky great teams, and they watched film on 8mm, and they watched and they spent time. As a matter of fact, Coach Howell and Coach Kerr actually moved next to each other so they could go back and they just go across the yard to watch game films and raise their kids in that kind of situation. But having said that, today's a little bit easier because of Huddle, except you have technology working for you, whereas that generation of coaches had technology working against them, so they literally had to spend physical time away. So you've been a coordinator. Do you think that it's easier for guys to put together and develop game plans because of technology? Is it, I mean, after the kids have gone to bed, everybody's gone to bed, you find yourself at 11 o'clock at night looking over game film? How do you handle all this and juggle it all?
There's a lot of stuff in that question.
I know
that I want to get answered. I think that there's a couple of things. Yes, from a technological standpoint, it is easier for us now than it was for them then. From a time standpoint, from 365 days a year, it's not even close to as challenging for them as it is for us. It is now a 365-day-a-year job with the summers, with the off-season weights, workouts. Those things weren't done back then. You know, it was nothing for school to end, even when I was playing, and to say, hey, every Tuesday, Thursday this summer. If you want to come in and throw the ball and lift a little bit, you're welcome to. But if not, have a great summer, and we'll see you August 1st. I mean, that
didn't happen at Hobart, Indiana. I'll let you know that. But there were some schools, I mean, because literally Coach Al started the weight program in 1965.
Right.
So kind of give me an idea.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's remarkable. But I think that I think more time is put in now than ever before. But I do believe that we have a distinct advantage, from a technology aspect. Having said that, like, the way that we structure our time and with my family is on Saturday mornings when we go in for film, we're done by 11. When I get home, I do not do another thing football related the rest of the day. I don't look at the next opponent.
You watch Saturday football games on TV?
My wife wants to do that more than I do. I am footballed out on Saturdays.
Okay.
If Notre Dame's on and I'm awake, I'll watch it. But last Saturday,
they weren't awake on Saturday either.
So last Saturday, we packed up the family. We went to Notre Dame's campus to watch Justin Fisher enter the stadium as a Notre Dame football player. We went home. Kids and I got in the pool. I had no idea what was going on in the Notre Dame game. It's for me, that's the time to mentally check out, clear the head. Sunday we get back to work, and really when I'm home, my kids aren't awake and I'm on film. If anything, I can fall asleep pretty fast, but if I wake up in the middle of the night, that's when film comes on because I can't go back to sleep. So I try really hard to when I'm home to be home. And if it's less time because I got more things to do on a Sunday or a Wednesday night, that's fine. But the time that I am home, I really want it to be that I'm there. So that's the way our family tries to structure it. But like, you can't do this without a supportive wife. Our coaches are blessed. All of our coaches are blessed with incredibly supportive wives that actually encourage us to do the thing that we do, which is a special thing. So we're really lucky in that regard to have wives that are willing to allow us to be giving of our time, to the young people in our community.
You've also gotten involved in other aspects of football that's not necessarily Mishawaka High School football related. It represents Mishawaka High School football, but you're involved in stuff like the annual gatherings that we have here with the Moose Krause. You've been involved in the Hall of Fame stuff. You guys are involved in a wide variety of things. Do you feel that that is part of appreciating the legacy of people that have come before you because they were involved in that situation?
Yeah, I think so. The Moose Krause thing is just something that I'm really passionate about. I was presented the opportunity to be on the scholarship board several years ago, and when you have the opportunity to, 6 or 7 times a year to sit down with Phil Krause, Bill Sharp, and Bart Curtis over breakfast and decide a scholarship winner, like why would you pass that opportunity up? And then I was blessed for the past 2 years to serve as the Region 2 director for the IFCA, and I try to be really active in that regard to try to come up with ways to improve football in the state of Indiana, and I think that's a way to be able to give back to the sport. So I don't know any other way. You know what I mean? Like I would like to say that I made this decision, but it's the way I was taught by the people that I learned from. You're in and you're in, and so you do it to the best of your ability, and that does involve a lot of time, but it's the only way that I know how to do it.
35 years ago, I took that same type of oath. I says we're going to go all in, and we've been all in ever since then, haven't we? We have. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too greatly. Keep
Thanks.
up the great work, and best of luck this week and as the season unfolds, and hopefully get a chance to see you guys compete because I know that all the Dunelands teams that I cover in my broadcast area are going to be coming your way. So that would be kind of neat to be able to hang out with you on a football Friday night.
I will tell you what, if I would sign up for that right now. If you put us in a against a region opponent in November, I'll take it right now.
All right. We're going to take a quick timeout. Tanner and I will come back and we're going to give you a broad stroke look at what's going on as we move into the week number 5. Once again, a special thanks to Keith Kinder, head football coach of Mishawaka High School. His team Going to be matched up this week against the Plymouth Rockies. And we'll be back with more live from Beef O'Brady's right after this 2-minute timeout on 91.1 FM, The Globe, and Regional Radio Sports.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is now available in select stores across Indiana and online for order at indianafootballdigest.com. This year's digest is packed to the brim, not only with stats and scores, but in-depth and detailed analysis about each Indiana High School Athletic Association team. It also features a section on Indiana collegiate football and quotes from coaches all around the state, giving readers an inside look at the world of Indiana high school football. The 2022 Indiana Football Digest is available in select stores or online at indianafootballdigest.com.
Isn't technology wonderful? Buy something with a click and boom, it's at our door. Hungry? Another click and ta-da, it's there in a flash. Why should banking be any different? With TCU Mobile and online banking, plus our convenient contactless debit MasterCard, you control your finances anytime from anywhere. TCU makes banking easy with technology that simplifies your life. Learn more at tcunet.com. TCU, 90 years of empowering members. Federally insured by NCUA.
Welcome back here to Beef O'Brady's. Glad you can join us here on 91.1 FM. Special thanks to Keith Kinder, the head football coach at Mishawaka High School. Appreciate him greatly. Before we get back into our football talk, I want to send out a hearty congratulations to Katie Weiss, the head women's volleyball coach at Bethel University in Mishawaka. She won her 100th career match last night. So congratulations to Katie. Not only has she won a national championship as a coach, also won one as a player, and just happy for her and her success. And they swept the Grace Lancers last night over at the Gates Gymnasium. But getting back to high school football, Tanner, we're getting ready to go into week number 5, and obviously some marquee games along the way, and some great performances from last week. And just a couple of them right off the top. Some of the top running back performances. Cascades' Liam Farmer, 21 rushes, 381 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's a pretty good day at the office. And you think that was good? How about Eastern Green's James Lewis? 33 rushes, 372 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And this guy did it against a little bit better competition. Luke Hansen, Indianapolis Roncalli, 24 carries, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, plus he caught 2 passes for 56 yards. So some great performances in the running back standpoint. On the quarterback standpoint, I'll tell you what, there's been some dynamic passing performance. Trader Point's Christian Cooper Simmons Little was 26 of 37 for 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for another score. My guy, Jaden Whitaker from Brownsburg, we just did a feature on him last week on Colts.com/Indiana /high school football. He was 22 of 30, 356 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also ran 6 times for 49. And also, the other guy I want to bring up a couple of, actually, West Lafayette's Max Mullis, 19 of 30, 341 yards and 3 touchdowns. Plus, he also ran for 128 yards. The last great quarterback performance was Tommy Gutowski from Ben Davis High School, 24 of 34, 321 yards, 3 scores. However, his team lost to Center Grove. So those are some of the top offensive passing and running performances. So we can always throw in some of the top receivers, and one of them would be Gavin Tyndall from Covenant Christian, 7 receptions, 222 yards, 2 scores. And Brad Schultz of Triton Central had 5 catches for 217 yards and 3 touchdowns against Monrovia. So it's that time of the year where guys are lighting up the stat sheet, lighting up the scoreboard. Last week, I know that We had team scores in the 70s and the 80s as those high-octane offenses were getting going. But ironically, the most unique one is on the defensive end. How about Steve Stearns, North Decatur team? 4 games into the season, not scored upon. 4 shutouts in a row. What do you think?
No, it's just hard to imagine. I mean, and we always talk about with the competition how there are some programs who right now they're just at their best. But reality is football is one of those sports where anytime you shut out your opponent, whether it's a really dominant team or a really kind of weaker team in the state, the reality is when you shut out an opponent in your first 4 games, doesn't matter who you're playing, that's going to be impressive against any type of competition. So props to North Decatur in this one, and we'll see how they can continue that success throughout the course of the season.
All right, Matt Copsey's got his top games all lined up, and before you share those with me, Matt Copsey better have selected the Hobart Brickies at the Lowell Red Devils as one of his games. I don't know if he did. He sent the email to me with the story. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but to me that is one of those games that is a must go to. And of course, the game that we have right here is we have Penn is on the road at Elkhart. That game will be going on 91.1 FM, the Globe, with Mike Fleshman, along with the legendary Bob Miller, and of course Matt Copsey. So who are the top games according to our Hall of Fame sports writer, Matt Copsey?
Well, first and foremost, also go with that Hobart-Lowell game, which I'm very fortunate that I'll get to be at tomorrow. That's going to be a rematch of last year's sectional championship. Of course, the Lowell Red Devils ended up winning that one on their home field at the Inferno. So if you're the Hobart Brickies, that's one that has to have been circled in red pen to try to kind of get back at the Red Devils for taking that sectional championship. And it'll be interesting to see how Noah Ehrlich, the sophomore quarterback over for Hobart, how he performs. But a couple other games that Matt has here that I was able to find. We've got Jimtown at Bremen, both teams at 2-2, and the Jimmies, they're looking for their 6th straight victory over the Lions. Of course, anytime you play at Bremen, though, always a tough place to win at. Knox is at Glen. Now, interestingly enough, the Redskins have taken 5 of the previous 7 matchups with Glen, but of course, John Glenn, and under the direction of John Barron, he's done a really nice job so far after the 3-1 start and almost made it 4-0, but came up just 8 points short. You mentioned it, Penn at Elkhart. That's going to be Elkhart off to a 4-0 start, and they've lost the last 2 games to the Kingsmen, but they're trying to look to stay at 5-0. But, of course, Penn, after 2 tough games against Cathedral and St. Xavier out of Ohio, looking to get back on the winning side of things. Of course, South Bend St. Joe, they're at New Prairie. New Prairie's 4-0 in the year, and the St. Joseph Indians at 2-2. And New Prairie, they've won 4 consecutive games against St. Joseph, so that should be a good matchup. And, of course, when we talked about it a little bit with Keith, but, of course, Warsaw's at Northwood, both teams at 4-0. The Tigers have won 3 of the last 5 meetings against Northwood, so that game right there should be a really good one between Coach Curtis and Coach Andrew. So those are just a couple of the games that Matt Copsey has to keep on the horizon.
All right, some other games I think Matt should consider. Noblesville and Zionsville, so we have the Battle of the Vills over at Zionsville. That should be a neat matchup, I think, when it's all said and done. I also like a couple other matchups. I know Madison Grant's taking a pair of unbeaten teams, as Madison Grant is taking on Oak Hill. I'm thinking that Matt probably should have picked Guerin Catholic at Roncalli, Gibson Southern at Southridge, Dwenger and Carroll of Fort Wayne will punch each other's lights out this coming weekend. And I know West Lafayette, Rensselaer Central, those teams have played. That's been a very entertaining game over the course of the history, if you will. But I think when it's all said and done, there are some great games in this state. Homestead and Snyder, always a great game over in the forts. And also, by the way, congratulations goes out to Casey Colton, the head football coach at Heritage High School. Was named the Colts Coach of the Week for this past week, week number 5.
And, of course, his reason being is they ended up beating a South Adams team that was ranked 3 in 1A, and rightfully so. Heritage off to a 3-1 start. Casey's done a really nice job with that program, and I saw an interview that he had down in Fort Wayne and said it was mostly the kids on that one, but props to Coach. He absolutely deserves that. And they've got a tough test as they're looking to go 2-0 against teams with Adams in the name as they take on the Flying Jets from Adams Central. Of course, that's another really tough opponent. If Heritage was able to come out of there with a win, then that Heritage team could be a little scarier. But Adams Central, of course, the 1A state runner-ups against a Lutheran last year and already off to a really, really good start. So I think that Adams Central Heritage game could be interesting, just pending that Heritage got themselves a nice win against the Starfires.
Ben Davis, Warren Central, always a great matchup. Brownsburg will be on the road at Fishers. That Brownsburg team is on a roll right now. And then, of course, the game that I'm going to be at, that I'll be broadcasting on our affiliated and flagship station of Regional Radio Sports, is what they call Patriot Night, as Chesterton will be on the road taking that 6-mile bus ride over to Valparaiso to take on the Vikings. Vikings, which lost a pin in the first week of the season, have roared back, a vastly improved football team, as they're going to be taking on the Trojans. They are now coming in at 3-1. We're going to take our final timeout, come back and wrap it up live from Beef O'Brady's. We'll do that right after this short timeout on Regional Radio Sports.
Beef O'Brady's is a locally owned, family-operated restaurant designed for food and sports, featuring appetizers, wraps, pizzas, sandwiches, salads, and wings. Beef O'Brady's also broadcasts televised sporting events. The State Road 23 Granger location has carry-out service and includes a party room and an outside patio. More information is available on their website, beefobradys.com, or by calling 574-271-1415. That's 574-271-1415. Beef O'Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Numbers are fine at the deli or donut shop. Next. But you deserve better when you're shopping for a loan or checking account. At TCU, you're a member, not a number. It's how we've done business since 1931, and it means an unmatched level of attention. Ready for better banking? Don't take a number. Next. Become a member today at TCU. TCU, 90 years of personal service. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Welcome back here for our final segment here from Beef O'Brady's. We'll encourage you to stick around for the show next week. Our scheduled guest is Scott Cooper, the head men's basketball coach at Indiana University South Bend, and also Thiago Pinto, the head men's soccer coach out at Bethel. They are moving up in the rankings, I believe up into the top 15 now, and we'll be talking to those two cats out here. So encourage you to stick around for that. Games tomorrow on Regional Radio Sports, including, as I mentioned to you, the game that I'm doing, Chesterton at Valparaiso, 6 o'clock Central Time. You can listen to that on WEFM, 95.9 FM, and online at www.rrsn.com.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the other games. Of course, we already mentioned it. Penn is going to be at Elkhart, as it's going to be Mike Fleshman, Matt Copsey, and the legendary Bob Miller on the call right here on 91.1 FM WGCS. That is a 6:30 Eastern start time here on the Globe. We've also got Hobart at Lowell, which I will be working camera with Todd Kibbe and Tony McHale over out at the Inferno. That should be a good rematch of last year's sectional championship. That is scheduled for a 6:15 Central Time over out in the area. Our other football game for tomorrow, it's going to be Munster at Kankakee Valley with Vince Gray, Ryan Matthews, and Nick Hughes all at the call. So that should be a good matchup between those two teams, and that is also a 6:15 Central start time. And those are our 4 high school football games that we have going on for tomorrow night.
And it's a busy time of the year, and of course, college football is kind of getting to the point right now. It's almost we're really in a situation now where it's almost a game every night of the week. It's really become that prolific. And of course, you look at college football. And congratulations, by the way, goes out to my very good friend Tom Allen. They were able to pick up a come from behind win in their game last week, and they moved to 2-0 on the season. But they'll be matched up against unbeaten Western Kentucky coming up this weekend. And of course, Notre Dame trying to bounce back after a really disappointing loss to Marshall. And the Thundering Herd, my good friend Steve Cotton, who's the longtime voice of the Thundering Herd, was in town for that one. What a neat game. Georgia, South Carolina, UConn, Michigan, Oklahoma, Nebraska in that one. Youngstown State, Kentucky, Texas State, Baylor, BYU, Oregon, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Penn State, Auburn, University of Lafayette, Monroe, and Alabama, and just to name a few of the games that you can check out this coming Saturday. That is going to do it for our broadcast here at Beef O'Brady's in Granger, Indiana. A special thanks once again goes out to Keith Kinder, the head football coach at Mishawaka High School. I always enjoy talking with Keith to see how much that young man has grown up. I remember taking his picture for the Indiana Football Digest when he was at Jimtown High School, watch him win a state championship, broadcast a game, and just neat to see how much he has matured and grown up and really done wonderful things for high school football in every aspect of his life. Best of luck to you, Double K. That's going to do it for our program here tonight for Taney County, for Tanner Camper, Dante Stanton, I'm Paul Condry, and on behalf of everyone at B4 Brady's, God bless you all. Semper Fidelis. Good night, everyone.